Hey everyone, I'm so happy to be here in my first ever Swamp Up. I'm Yuval Fernbach, previously co-founder and CTO for Qwak, today CTO for JFrog ML. And today I'm going to talk about MLOps. So just a bit before talking about MLOps, I want to go back to the statistic that you have shared before. You have shared that 90% of the application will include ML in them by 2027. So guess who's actually going to manage those applications? Guess who's going to manage the infrastructure and the security for those applications? You, the DevOps, the DevSecOps, the MLOps. You are the ones that actually need to manage the applications and make sure that they can work in production, they can be secured in production, and of course, give the right outcome to the product. So who here in the crowd is feeling comfortable to manage their machine learning models, including, of course, the infrastructure and security right now? Raise your hands. I don't see too many hands in the crowd. And it makes sense. It's a new field. There are many challenges with this field. And my goal today is to show you how you can start this path to actually support those models and those applications in production. So before, I've been in this decade for quite some time now, in this field, sorry, for quite some time now, for more than a decade. And in my past, I worked for Amazon Web Services, AWS. I was part of their machine learning service team. And during that time, I actually talked with hundreds of AWS customers specifically about their machine learning workloads. And I worked with them to make that happen. And what I've noticed is that in most of the cases, those models don't really make an impact on production. Those projects actually fail. And this is a statistic by Gartner, another one, that 85% of AI and machine learning applications actually fail to reach production. So the data science teams build those projects, they start the research, but eventually there is no impact on production. And there are many reasons to that. But a few years ago, when we founded Qwak, we tried to understand why it happens. And what we figured out is that it's mostly because of the infrastructure. The data scientists, the machine learning engineers lack the infrastructure to actually manage those models and make sure that they impact the product. And there are many reasons for that. But first of all, it's because that the ML lifecycle is different than the software lifecycle. You have already shared that, and that's a fact. It's different because there are different steps. You need to research for the right model. You need to research for the right data. You need to reiterate on versions. So it's a different lifecycle, and you need to make sure that you support that lifecycle. Second is that data scientists are not alone. They cannot do their job alone. They need data engineers to build the data. They need software engineers to actually serve that model as a microservice. They need DevOps and DevSecOps to make sure that those models can actually run in production and be secured. And they cannot do that by themselves with the current knowledge that they have and the current tools that they have. So a few months ago, we decided to leap forward and join JFrog to make sure that all of you have the tools that you need to actually make that work, to actually make sure that machine learning and Gen AI applications are part of your business and can actually impact your products. So just to understand better what are the machine learning challenges and why it's such a different life cycle, let me share a bit about how that life cycle looks like and what is the infrastructure that's involved in that life cycle. So let's say I have a new data science team, and they're starting the new project. So first of all, they need to iterate with the data and create the features. So they ask you, the DevOps, the DevSecOps, for tools to actually do that. They ask for tools to run and create features and a notebook infrastructure to iterate on those features and visualize them. And they created the features. Next step, they need to start training models and run experiments. So again, another infrastructure, an infrastructure that allows them to iterate, to run training jobs on CPUs, on GPUs, use the infrastructure that you have in the cloud or on-prem, and eventually manage those experiments. They manage the experiments, and now they need to build the artifacts. So next phase is the model registry, where they can save the actual artifacts, and then an infrastructure to deploy those models. So again, each one of those boxes involved quite a lot of infrastructure and tools that are needed to actually make that happen. Now that the model is in production, monitoring model is not the same as monitoring software. It's not just about the infrastructure metrics. It's also the data metrics, the model metrics. So they need the model monitoring capabilities to understand the model is still relevant. And a few years ago, Gen AI started to pop up, and you see more and more Gen AI applications, and yet another infrastructure. You need a way to manage the RAG applications, the vectors. You need a way to trace and monitor the LLM application. You need a way to manage the prompts. So yet more and more infrastructure that eventually you need to manage. You need to build for the data scientists and the ML engineers. And what I've seen in many times happens is that companies build more and more infrastructure that eventually grows. They need to manage that infrastructure. They need to maintain that infrastructure. And they are never up to date because the technology is always, there is always new technology. There are always new capabilities. So eventually, the solution for that is to have an MLOps solution, a solution that can actually allow you all those different solutions in all those different capabilities in a single solution. Capabilities like improved collaboration between different teams. Solutions like streamlining the deployment process, allowing the data scientists to start from their development and deploy to production and do it by themselves in a trusted way. An ability, of course, to monitor and detect for errors and have a better compliance and auditability, and eventually have the ability to scale and manage tens, hundreds, and thousands of models in production in, of course, a streamlined development lifecycle. So this diagram was already shared by Yoav before, and I want to reshare that because eventually you need to have a way to manage both your ML lifecycle, your MLOps platform, with your current DevOps practices, with the place where you currently save all your binaries, all your artifacts. So what we allow today with JFrog ML is the ability to, first of all, save all your records in your Artifactory. The Artifactory you already own, you already manage, and you already trust. That includes, of course, everything that's related to the models, the data set, the binaries, the code, the requirements, everything in a single Artifactory. Second is the ML supply chain must be secured. And we allow you to secure that using the tools that you already trust and you already use. Tools like X-Ray to scan both the models and the requirements, the packages, the dependencies that you use as a part of your model development. That includes also things like advanced security and runtime. And we also added the ability to manage the curation, not just for packages, but for models as well. In addition to that, using the platform, you can deploy models with a single click of a button, and those deployed models can be monitored, both for the infrastructure, so the latency, the metrics, the infrastructure metrics for the models. The data and the models themselves can be monitored in that single platform. So what I'm going to show you now is a demo. I've created a minimized view of this diagram of the specific set of features that I will show in the demo. What we'll do in the demo is, first of all, I will show the JFrog ML UI, and I will show how I can enable my data scientists, my ML engineers, which specific repositories they can use for their dependencies and for their models. Second, I will show how data scientists and ML engineers can compare their experiments, manage their training jobs, and save all those artifacts in Artifactory automatically. Then we'll show how they can view and manage the model security posture. And finally, we will deploy those models, run predictions, and show how that lifecycle ends from development to deployment and inference. So I will move now to the computer. And I will start from the JFrog platform that you all know and love. Starting today, in JFrog platform, you already have the JFrog ML button directly in the platform. You can click on that button and open the JFrog ML UI directly. JFrog ML, again, that's the view for the data scientists, for the ML engineers that allow them to manage their lifecycle while still making sure it's trusted and running on top of the JFrog platform, on top of Artifactory and the security features. So first of all, we'll show how that integration looks like. I'll click on the settings, and directly in the platform, I can configure which specific Python repositories I want to use. For example, I chose this PyPy local that have my internal Python dependencies already there. And I also configured an Hugging Face repo that I can use to pull any model directly from Hugging Face. Second, once this is configured, I go to the model section, and I've created a model, a sentiment analysis model, that will allow me to have an ability to analyze the sentiment of all the chats that I have in my support through my Green Pizza application. So I have the Green Pizza application that Eyal shared before, and we have a customer support chat, and I want to analyze all the sentiment of all the chats to that application. So I created the sentiment analysis model. Let's click on this model. And I'll start from the build view. Those are the different experiments that the data scientist already ran. So each line in here is an experiment. An experiment eventually is a training job, a job to train a model that includes specific configurations, specific parameters, and eventually create a model that can answer my questions, can actually give me feedback. If I scroll to the right, I can see that each one of those jobs, and I can even make it a bit larger, was built with specific set of parameters, and eventually even output a different metric. So I won't go too much into details to the metric itself, but this model was built, and I have different models. Each one of those models eventually was built. And if I click on one of the models, or even choose two models and compare them, I can see what are the differences between those different versions. For example, in this case, each one of the versions was built with different configurations, different parameters, eventually output a different metric, and I can even see the differences in the code itself. Clicking on one of the versions, I can see the process that built that version, the actual build system that includes, of course, pulling the dependencies directly from Artifactory and eventually training the model. I can see that all the dependencies are pulled directly from the JFrog repo. And I now have that built model. Every one of those built models that was built as part of that process have a security posture. So every model is automatically scanned by JFrog Security. And you can see both the X-ray scanning and, of course, the contextual analysis, which specific vulnerabilities are actually applicable. And I can even click on the view all and see directly from my Artifactory view this specific scan. We'll see it in a second. And all, of course, the vulnerabilities of this specific model that was built. So every model is eventually an artifact that is saved, or actually a bunch of artifacts that are saved back to Artifactory. Every model is scanned, again, including both X-ray and contextual analysis, advanced security. And every one of those models, I can see the artifact themselves in Artifactory as well. So everything is saved back to Artifactory as part of it. And now you'll be able to see the artifacts as well. So those artifacts, in this case, the Docker image, is saved directly into Artifactory as part of the model build lifecycle. Let's say the data scientist now want to build a new model. This time, this model is not based on the same base model as before. It's now based, let me just redo the filter. So this new model is now based on GPT. So a Gen AI model behind the scenes, not BERT, that was a classic language model, but GPT, it's a different type of model. And I can see that this specific job actually failed. It failed, and the reason that it failed is it was curated. So as I said before, based on your request, we've added the ability to manage the curation, not just for packages, but now specifically for models. So if I'll go back to Artifactory, and actually to the curation view and the audit, I can see that this model was actually blocked. This specific version, the GPT one, was blocked. The reason it was blocked is due to ML allowed list. So what we allow you to do is manage different policies of why you want to block or allow models to be used in your organization. For example, in this case, I have 4 different policies. Let's focus on 2. First is block malicious package. every package, every model in Hugging Face that will have a malicious package in it will be automatically blocked. They will not be able to use those packages. Second is we created an ML allowed list. Only models that have the ML allowed list tag in them will actually be able to be used as part of the training. How to add that tag? That's really simple. I can go into the package catalog, click on the GPT model, or search for it, and I can see that this model is currently blocked. The only thing that I need to do is to add the label that I configured, so in this case, ML allowed list, and choose on which specific versions will be applied. Let's configure only this version, not including the future one, the past ones. Apply that. And now this model is actually approved for downloading, so next time the data science team will try to use this model, it will work. Now this model is approved, and you can manage that list of approved model directly from the package catalog and using the curation policies. So going back to the presentation, what I've shared in this demo is how to do multiple things. First of all, how to connect and configure which specific repositories will be used as part of the data scientist's day-to-day job. Second, I've showed how to run experiments, how to compare them, how data scientists can do their day-to-day job, while still making sure that all the artifacts are trusted, are managed as part of Artifactory, are scanned by JFrog security, and eventually can be deployed directly from the JFrog platform, directly from JFrog ML to production, be managed there, and run inference as well. We have, of course, many more features and many more capabilities in the platform, including data, feature store, vector store, and many others. You can come by our booth. It's the only yellow booth outside, now becoming green. So come by our booth, go ask us questions. I'll be there as well. And thank you, everyone, for being in this conference.